Five, four, three, two, one. Hello, everybody. This is another edition of According to Fastball John with Dave Jordon and John D'Acquisto. Today we're going to be speaking about what it's like to come into spring training as a rookie, fresh, 19 years old, 20 years old, coming in for your first time to play with the big boys. We're also going to be talking about Jacob DeGrone and David Price and how it feels coming back and getting injured. One coming back, one getting injured. These are things that players have to deal with every time they go out there. The expectations are high, and something like that, an injury happens, can set you back a whole year, maybe two sometimes. So with that, I'm going to bring in my partner, Dave Jordon. How you doing tonight, Dave?
Johnny, happy Sunday. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Dave. Doing fine. Just enjoying spring training and just got done with the Texas Rangers and the Chicago Cubs in a barn burner. It lasted 3 hours and 29 minutes, and it ended in a tie, 9-9. Seesaw battle, back and forth.
They ended after 10 innings, as is customary in spring training, correct?
No, actually, they ended it in the bottom of the ninth. They both agreed to end it in the bottom of the ninth because they ran out of pitchers.
Oh, wow.
One of the great forerunners of spring training baseball. Yes.
Yeah. How was the crowd today? I'm sure it was wonderful.
Sellout. Crowd was a sellout today, and it was 11,048. Temperature was right at about 70 degrees. Wind was blowing out. Cubbies hit a grand slam. There were 6 home runs in the game, and it was quite an entertaining ball game. And pretty much everyone stayed to the very end. A lot of kids got to play, which was good. The cuts are coming up here pretty soon, starting next week. They're going to start thinning out the teams, and this is where it's really hard for a kid to want to let go, getting a taste of that big league meal money and, playing there with the big boys and getting all the attention. It's hard to say goodbye to go down to AAA, but, that's part of it. You got to pay your dues, and, sometimes being on a team like the Cubs is hard to do because you're not going to go anywhere, and you don't see a future till someone leaves their position or goes for free agency. So it's kind of hard. It gets in your head a little bit sometimes. But anyway, with that.
But, that must have been a lot worse in the 70s when you had guys who would be at AAA for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Guys like Skip James was with Phoenix for about 4 or 5 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I know. And the craziest thing is that Skip at first base, we had Dave Kingman and Ed Goodson. Goodson got hurt. Kingman got traded. And yet they still didn't bring up Skip till after 5 years when he was in AAA.
Yeah.
And there's a good defense. And what we needed was really a good defensive first baseman that could hit for average instead of hitting for – and Skip would have hit home runs in Candlestick because of the fact the wind blew out in right field. So, it was kind of, you can get stalled in something like that. And, and they tried everybody over there except for Skip. Man,
yeah.
I thought Skip would have been the one to go, to be very honest.
Turn back the clock. It's 1972. He's in Fresno. He's clubbing the ball at Fresno. And he's thinking, all right, McCovey will be gone in a couple of years. Goodson's probably going to go to third base. It's great. And then Kingman. But then McCovey's gone. Then there's Kingman. Then Kingman's gone. And Skip James is thinking, all right, it's 75. They're going to bring me up. In May, they bring in Willie Martinez. So, and then he has a tough season in 76. And they're like, all right, he's going to be gone soon. Then I'll get my shot. Finally. Then they bring in Darrell Evans. And the Evans experiment at first base doesn't work. So he's thinking, finally, spring 1977 is going to happen for me. And what do? They bring Stretch back.
Yes, I know. He just got overlooked every time. And and part of the reason was he didn't hit home runs. That was the only reason why they stayed away from him. And the Giants were big believers of power at the corners. They wanted power at the corners. You know, guys that could hit home runs. You know, because they were so spoiled with Willie McCovey's performances in the past years, they were looking for someone like that, and that's why they brought Darrell Evans in. You know, from Atlanta, because he hit 40-plus home runs when he was with Atlanta. But, you know, it's like, you know, you need defense sometimes, too. You know, and defense can win you games just as well as that home run, you know, in the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning, you know. So, I don't know. I kind of thought Skip kind of got a raw deal, you know, in being overlooked a lot. But he hung in there. And he did get his big league time in, so. You know?
He did. He ended up getting his cup of coffee in '78. You know, but there were a lot of guys that I know he played with like that. Like you think of the guys, you know, in Cincinnati with the Big Red Machine. Those guys didn't go anywhere forever. You had Ed Armbrister, they had a rookie baseball card for him almost every year in the mid '70s, and even Youngblood. Youngblood was in Indianapolis for a few years.
That's right. Youngie hung in there. He hung in there for a while. You know?
Yeah, then he finally got his big break with the Mets. So yeah, I mean, like, what is that feeling when you get to spring training the first time? Walk me through that 1971. You're 19 years old, and you're in there, in that environment, that atmosphere, as one of them for the first time. I mean, that must just be mind-blowing.
I was peeing my pants. Literally. Driving from San Diego, I drove my car. I drove it all the way to Casa Grande, Arizona. I went through, this is how stupid I was. Not stupid, I was just didn't know where I was going. I walked through the training room, and there's guys in there getting their arms, you know, rubbed down, you know, a little back rub and stuff. And I'm walking through, and Mike Murphy meets me at the training room entrance inside the clubhouse, because I walked through the back door and went out that way. And went into the clubhouse. I had my bag and everything. And Mike says, "You're John, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He goes, "There's your locker on the left, all the way in the corner. And that's Mr. Mays sitting over there. And those are his lockers, all 8 of them." And I go, "Okay. So I have that one over there?" He goes, "Yeah. So you could technically say you're lockering next to Willie Mays." And I said, "Okay." So I put my bag down. Murph took me over and introduced me to Willie, and I was just like, wow, this is the great Willie Mays, my God. And he stood up, and he was like 5'10". And in my eyes, he was like 10'5", you know. I mean, he was like huge. And I said, "It's very nice to meet you, Mr. Mays." He goes, "Call me Willie. We're on the same team now." And that was like a shock to me. We're on the same team now. And I went, my God, I was collecting bubblegum cards of this guy not more than a year ago, you know, and, you know, it's like now, and he goes, "Do you play golf?" And I said, "Yeah, I play golf." He goes, "Here's a couple boxes of balls." And I went back to my locker, opened them up, and I looked at him, and he's laughing. It said Willie Mays 24 on them. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to play with these." "Right, sure." He goes, "Play with them. Don't worry about the name. Play with them. You know, you lose them, I've got more." And I said, "Okay." And he asked me if I needed anything. I mean, he was treating me like a little brother. It was great. It was absolutely awesome. Then I get up and walk around the corner. There's Gaylord Perry and Juan Marichal, and they come up. They start needling me right out of the get-go. "Oh, so you're the hard thrower. You're the young buck that's going to come up here and take our spots and all this stuff." And I said, "Well, I'm here. I'm going to give it my best effort." You know, and oh, did they have fun with me. I'm a 19-year-old kid with a bunch of 30-plus-year-old guys, and Mays was bucking into 40. He was touching 40. And you know, it was just a rare feeling, you know, to be able to, you know, the first day to put on the uniform was really scary. I mean, it was like, I'm putting on my uniform, and, you know, I first had number 50. They gave me number 50, and so I put it on, and we go out to the field, and, you know, and Marichal come up to me, and he says, 50? my God, we got to get you a better uniform than that. You know, next day I had number 45, and that at that point I knew there was a potential that I could possibly really make this club, and I saw what was out there, and then we took live batting practice where the pitchers throw to the hitters, and who gets into the cage first? It's Willie Mays, and I started throwing, and man, the first 4 pitches I threw Willie had to be 95, 98. And Willie says, "Hold on a second." And he walks out. He goes, "You see this on my chest?" He said, says Giants, right? I go, "Yeah." He goes, "What's on your chest?" I said, "It says Giants." He goes, "We're on the same team. You can't be throwing this hard for batting practice." I said, "That's how I pitch. I throw this hard." And he goes, "You got to be kidding me." I said, "No, I throw this hard. I can't throw any other way but this way." "All right, I can't hit this. I'll wait for somebody else." So Bobby Bonds jumped in, and he goes, "I'll try." He jumped in, and he couldn't hit me. And then Kenny Henderson jumped in, and he kind of fouled a couple off, and and they're all laughing. There were Charlie's back there. Charlie Fox is laughing like crazy, and you guys can't hit the young kid. He's making you look sick, and oh God, from that point on. It was like the relationship began at that point, and they were like really impressed, with the velocity of my ball, and so it was fun breaking in with them, and boy, did I get ribbed a lot. I was like the little brother that came to play with the big boys, It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was really fun. It was a trip.
Now, is that kind of the norm for a young player coming into the like a non-roster invitee from the organization, coming into spring training, coming into camp? Or is there any kind of, is it always that smooth? Is my question.
Well, see, I wasn't a non-roster invitee. I was actually on the 40-man roster because I'd signed a big league contract the prior year. But the non-roster invitees that get invited to camp, it's like, do I really have a chance here? Are they really interested in looking at me? When you get that call, you get that letter, and you open it up, and it says, "Charlie Fox would like to have you come to spring training with the San Francisco Giants. You are now on the 40-man roster. You must report in at 205 pounds. You must be ready to go." And it's like, you sit there and it's like getting accepted to go to college.
Yeah.
You work so hard to earn that, and then when you get that, it's a real trip. I mean, it's a mind blower, and you work so hard to get there, and now you're there. Now what are you going to do with it? Now it's in your hand. So the word is, what are you going to do with it? Is you're going to perform. You're going to perform. So you step up to the plate and you do your thing. You work. You do the work that they tell you to do. You try not to get hurt. That's one thing, because this is the first big league spring training that I've gone to, and they run you, and you're sore, and you could potentially get hurt right out of the get-go.
Yeah.
And, so you got to be really careful, and but you don't want to be too careful because you don't want to offset anything that's going on. So it's kind of rough. It's kind of rough. And for a kid coming into that, he's trying his darndest to try to make the club, at least to get on the bench, or at least get into AAA ball. So he wants to get noticed and wants to be able to perform. And you're going guns out. You're going guns out. I mean, you're firing your pistolas all the way down. You're going to take somebody with you if you don't perform all the way to the max. And so you give it everything you've got. And sometimes you see guys that don't give it everything they've got, and they're sent down immediately. They see it. They see it right away. They're either timid or scared, and they know they can make that decision right now. And they test you really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, you got to have the chemistry. You got to be part of the team. You got to be one of the guys. You know, you got to kind of blend in with the older guys and kind of handle yourself. And that was one thing that I did really well was I was very mature for my age, and I got along great with people to begin with, and it made it kind of easy to get along with those guys. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It's an experience.
Yeah, I mean, without getting into any specific names or anything, did you see examples of guys who probably could have made it, but because of the personal chemistry or just not knowing how to hang out, quote unquote, that they didn't make the team?
Yeah, I did. I saw a lot of them. You call them cup of coffee guys. I call them cup of coffee guys. Guys that are on the bubble. Utility guys, extra infielders, extra outfielders. I saw a lot of good players that just sat the bench and kept their mouths shut and made the team for a good 5 years and hung around in baseball for a good 5 years, but then never went any further than that because they were on the bubble. You know, you can make a team and you can be one of the stars, one of the performers, but, you know, being an extra guy, it's hit and miss. If they like you and you work hard and you do what they ask you to do and then some extra, they'll keep you. And you're not a troublemaker and you get along good and you're not creating problems going into the manager's office yelling you want to play when you're only a bench guy. I've seen guys do that and they bust their butts right out of baseball. You know, and you know, I can appreciate the competitiveness and the good attitude and wanting to play, but you're only as good as your mind is, you know. It's 90%. It's 90% mental. Everyone's got the talent. It's 90% mental. You got to be able to have the mental fortitude to sit there and play in front of 50, 60,000 people, you know, and block it out.
Yeah. Well, let's go through another spring training example. Let's remember, after 1974, you are the Sporting News NL Rookie Pitcher of the Year. You're going in there in 75 now. There are expectations on your back, and you're still only 22 or 23. What is that experience of going into spring training like? I mean, we talked about everything just about in the book, Fastball John, but we really didn't talk all that much about spring training 75. And I'd like to know, and I know a lot of other people like to know, you're the hot shot coming in now. What is that experience like walking into that spring training?
It's a lot different from the spring trainings prior. You wouldn't get that many interviews, and now you throw. And people are constantly looking for you to get interviewed. And now you're like big shot. Head small and not getting a big head about yourself, you know, and keeping confident on what type of player you need to be, and also being able to give the press and the media the proper interview and talk about your teammates in the proper sense of the matter, and don't talk crap about them. You know, be positive and generate a positive attitude every time you go out there and give credit where credit is due. You know, now it's a business. Now it's the business side. Now you got to play both ends of it. It's just not performing. It's being a good business sense man and having the sense to make that interview count. You know, when they and keeping them happy. Keeping the media happy. They're your friends. They can make you or break you. And if you get on the bad side of the media, i.e. Barry Bonds, look what they could do to him. You know? Yeah. We've seen it with a lot of guys. Dick Allen, you know, is a good example. Never used to do an interview. Steve Carlton never used to do an interview. You know? These are things that you got to be aware of all the way across the board. And, you know, you carry a lot of stuff on your shoulders. It's like on the back of one of my baseball cards, I made mention of the fact that I wasn't going to set any goals for myself because that would put extra pressure on me. I just wanted to go out and do my job every time as good as I could. That was my only goal I was going to set. And if I did my job the best that I could, I would win baseball games.
Right.
And that's the way you have to look at it. You got enough pressure on your shoulders. Why add more to it? You know?
Right. So my question now would be, what were the most, I guess, or the one spring training where you went in kind of with the most confidence? And we know that you had a great season in 74 and a phenomenal season in 78. What was the one, was there a spring training besides maybe 79 that you went in there with the most confidence?
I think 79 was when I went in with the most confidence, following up after a banner year in 78 and being able to just shut down everybody and knowing coming into 79, but I was still uncertain about what my role was going to be because Roger had said we lost, I believe we lost Rick Wise to an injury, and Mickey Lolich couldn't start. He was designated the bullpen, so it looked like I was designated to be a starter, and they had to put me as a starter again. And at that particular point, I had literally beaten out Raleigh Fingers for the closing job, and Raleigh was in reverse my setup man, and it was like I was on top of the world. And then they put me in a game in San Francisco, you know, to pitch against my old teammates, and I give up a home run in the ninth, and right away they gave up on me.
Yeah,
it wasn't they didn't give me another chance. They just gave up on me, and then I was back in my setup role, and then they put me in as a starter.
Yeah, yeah,
and that's the great Buzzy Bavasi at work.
It's the Johnny Tamargo story. That's in the book.
That's right.
It's
Here today and John Tamargo. Yep. It's a standing joke between the two of us, you know.
Yeah. So I guess those are the stages of a player's career with respect to spring training. Now, the last one I guess I would be wondered about. I mean, what is it like? You know, and I know that you kind of were. In Oakland, you were slated to be one of their relievers, or even if you were slated to be their closer in '83. But I mean,
that's correct.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, but from what you've known and what you've observed, kind of what is that like when you're kind of at the downside of your career, or you're in your mid to late 30s and been on a couple clubs? You come walk into spring training. There's some familiar faces. I mean, what's that experience like?
Well, you say, gee, I got another chance. I'm off of the Diesel Tour. I'm back here. I've got an opportunity. I don't know the manager. He doesn't know me, and I can tell right away that my nemesis Bill Rigney shows up, and that my chance is fizzing out real quick. Okay, and and they're going to go with the youth. They're going to go with the young kids. They're going to sit there and make a decision, and I'm going to be castrated on my way. Put it that way. And it's funny because I talk to Ron Schuler almost every day. I see him at the ballpark, and I asked him about that, and he confirmed it to me that Bill Rigney was behind every single move that happened when Burroughs had to make that decision at the last day.
Yeah.
And David, sometimes that's just politics of baseball.
Oh, absolutely.
That's just politics of baseball.
So
but remember this too. Yeah, but remember this, that Buzzy Bavasi and Bill Rigney were very close. And when Bill Rigney left San Diego, he was down there with Buzzy when I got traded to Montreal. And he was also with Oakland in the same position with Roy Eisenhart when I got released on the very last day and couldn't get picked up with anybody.
Yeah.
So, confirmed.
Yeah. That's, it's amazing. I guess it's not amazing, but I mean, it is important to have decent communication with your manager. And I think that I mean, you can tell me managers have been a little better in this day and age, having conversations and open dialogues with their pitchers than back then.
You have to. It's important. Because if you don't, you're going to lose that player. You got to be the dad. You got to be the psychiatrist. You got to be the guy that has the open door. You got to talk to your players. You got to know who they are. Get to know who they are, just not as a baseball player, but as a person, and what they've got in their heart, what they've got in their guts. What are they going to give you when you call them out? When it's 28 degrees in the last part of September. And you're playing in back east, and you want to call a guy up to go pinch hit, and he's freezing cold, and he's tight, and he goes up there, and you're going to ask him to get a base hit or hit an extra base hit and do something fantastic, and he doesn't. How do you think he feels? How do you think what do you think goes through his head? Oh, I'm not going to be here next year. There goes my paycheck. There goes my career. Things like that start running in your head.
Mm-hmm.
It starts running in your head, and you got to play with that. You got to play with that. It's difficult. It is very difficult. Baseball ain't as glamorous as what we think it is,
Yeah,
but it is. It's fun.
It's as rife with politics as any day job that any of us have.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Politics is everywhere. Even and more so in sports. More so in sports. I call it, you got to have somebody that sponsors you, someone that likes you to keep you going. And I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I was able to get my 10 years in and 12 seasons and 16 years of professional baseball. And, because I didn't piss very many people off in baseball that really made a difference in my career. I did to a degree, and I paid the price, but I didn't piss everybody off. I still maintained the credence for, with the attitude of I'm a hard worker, I can still throw hard, and I'm still valuable. And, until I pulled the trigger, till I said enough.
Yeah. And I guess
the hardest thing to do.
Point. That's an important point that a lot of guys have hung around because they're not a pain in the butt in the clubhouse, and they don't make more problems. They're not high maintenance.
That's right. You can't be high maintenance unless you're a superstar, and even then, you can't be high maintenance either. It's difficult. You put yourself in a position, you're going to find yourself walking the streets.
Yeah,
but that's it. That's it. That's how it works. So, David Price.
Yeah, he went on Friday, spent some time at the NFL Scouting Combine with Dr. James Andrews and another physician looking at his elbow. And apparently they said that he had a unique elbow and he could return to the mound when he felt up to it. But I think it's going to be a while before he picks up a baseball, at least 5 to 10 days at the very least.
Yeah, it's a precursor to having the Tommy John happen. But he just, like I say, he might have gone out and did a little too much too fast. With major expectations, you got to go easy. You got to break yourself into it. You can't change your routine. And that's tough. Now he's got a setback, so we'll see how that turns out. But on the other side, you got a guy like Jacob deGrom coming back off of Tommy John surgery, and you look at that, and he's getting confidence because he's starting to feel like his old self again.
Yeah.
Been there, done that,
Last year he had his issue when his average velocity fell from like 95 miles an hour to 93, and then he was shut down in early September. He comes back now, and he had a start a couple days ago against the Cardinals. He was hitting 96 and 97 on the gun, and everybody was very happy with it. And Mets pitching coach Dan Worthen was like, last year was everything they had to do to get him to 92 at certain points. So I mean, when you have somebody like that and like yourself, what is it? How do you kind of get that velocity back? Sometimes it goes and it never comes back. But when are the cases when it comes back?
Well, you're looking right away. It's in the arm but everyone says the arm's only along for the ride. Well, yes and no. You know, you have a labrum that you can tear, you know, and it's underneath your shoulder, and you tear that, and that's going to cause a major deficiency in your delivery, and it's going to make you pinch the ball off a little bit, and you're going to lose velocity. So, you know, you have to have your deltoid's got to be healthy, your rotacuff's got to be healthy, your labrum's got to be healthy. Those are three key parts of the shoulder that have to be healthy. And then your ulnar collateral ligament and your forearm and your ulna, which is your elbow, have to be healthy also. And, you know, for the whip to act as it's supposed to and have flexibility, you need to have the healthiest part of the shoulder and the arm, because that's where the energy flows through. And if there's a deficiency in the shoulder and the elbow, it's not going to flow through properly. You're going to lose velocity right away. It happened to Tim Lincecum, you know, and you got to make sure that your mechanics are proper and that you're opening up enough to let the energy flow through your body. And those are key things that you have to work on. Nowadays, it's easy to find. You got video cameras everywhere. We had to do a 35 millimeter film, you know, and we had to wait for the film to get developed. And then we had to watch it in a dark room. You know, now we've got TV screens and everything else. You know, it's unbelievable what these guys have at their access. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing, the technology that's out there and available. And I worked in the technology field, so I know how it is to look at somebody and see the deficiencies in a pitching motion. And the thing is how do you correct it? You know, and that's easy too. But you have to have cooperation from the correctee.
Yeah.
And, you know, the corrector, the student has to listen. And if they're not going to listen, they don't listen till it's too late.
Right.
And then they come crying to you. Why didn't you tell me? You know, but that's part of sports and being an athlete, you know. They have attitudes. And
that circles back to how well a manager can reach his player and the relationship between the manager and the pitcher. And ultimately that's the T word comes in, trust.
Yeah. Trust in your pitching coach more so. Having a good relationship with your pitching coach and trusting that he knows what the hell he's talking about. Okay.
Right.
That's a key thing. I'll say this much. I've been harping on Shelby Miller to stop doing that, kicking his leg up high and burying his hand in the ground. He goes out and he's dropping and driving and he punches out 5 in a row the other day. You know, and he's throwing 97 miles an hour, and there's no more jamming his hand in the ground. Somebody listened. Somebody finally corrected him, and somebody pointed him in the right direction. Bravo. Yay. Because he's a good pitcher, and he deserves better. Okay?
Yep.
There's a perfect example right there, coming from terrible to now he's starting to feel his confidence come back. You know, everyone goes through the ups and downs, Dave. Everyone goes through those ups and downs. It's how you get out of the downs and bring yourself back to the ups. You know, and you have to have, you know, guts to do it. You really do. But it's going to be an interesting season, my friend. It's going to be an interesting season. And I'm seeing teams are starting to form. We got cuts coming up next week. And, in fact, they're probably going to start moving guys here pretty soon. A lot of kids played today. I saw, you know, because the Cubs didn't have their first team out there today. So the big boys got the day off, but all the kids got to come out. You know, they only brought like they brought two guys, Baez and, the catcher, came out today. And, you know, so, it was quite interesting to see the kids. They're looking for guys to come off the bench, you know, guys that are potentially could hit. Left-handed batters, right-handed batters, guys with power, guys, you know, contact hitters, etc. He's looking to fill the team, you know, a couple more spots, and there's about, you know, 15 guys battling for 2 more spots, you know, go figure. So it's tough. It's tough. Well, that'll be it
I think
for today. You got any more to add there, pal, or what?
I think the issue of cuts might be an interesting topic to discuss next week.
Yes, I think so. We can do that. But I also think you and we met a milestone here with Fastball John for an indie company. We're nudging up on 1,000 books, folks, and that's over 20,000 in sales, and we're kind of smiling about that. And you know, it's for a small indie group. People like what we put together, and you can find out where to get it. We're going to tell you. It's on Amazon.com under Fastball John, and you can get it also at Barnes & Noble, online or in the store. And you can also get it on Kindle through Amazon.com. So give it a shot. It's a fun book to read. And if you need it signed, just get a hold of us on Facebook at John D'Acquisto, Johnny D, or get a hold of David on Dave Jordan's site, and we'll be glad to give you an address and where to send it and sign it for you. All right, so everybody have a good evening and enjoy the baseball. It's starting to heat up, and it looks like America's pastime is roaring on. So have a good evening, and good night, my friend Dave. Have a good evening. I'll talk to you later.
Good night, Johnny.
Good night.
Good night.